wasting all my feathers," he said. "And that's when I fell and landed in the puddle." Polly kept the crow with her all through the following fortnight, taking him wherever she went, apart from school, when he stayed in her bedroom. It wasn't ideal, as Polly's mother often said, because as his leg mended, the crow became more energetic and daring, and, especially, inquisitive. Polly never knew what to expect when she came home. More than once she'd found the contents of her drawers and cupboards scattered all over the floor. At the end of the 2 weeks, Polly took Crow to see her Uncle Stan, who was an expert on animals. First, Stan checked his leg, which he said was healing nicely, and then he gently stretched out one of Crow's wings to have a look. "Well," he said, "they probably do need a bit more time to grow before he flies." He smoothed out the longest feathers. "They'll soon be strong enough. He's lucky he has you to look after him." Polly had known that when Crow's leg was better and his wings were bigger, she would have to let him go. He was a wild creature, and he would need to live in the wild world he came from. When the time came to release him, they went to the top of a nearby hill so that he could see all around and choose a direction to fly in. Polly prepared herself to say goodbye, and Crow eventually swooped away, unsteadily, towards the trees. Moments later, he swooped back and landed on her head. "Aren't you going?" Polly asked. "I'd prefer to stay, if I may," he replied. And so he stayed. Chapter 2. Polly and Crow lived in a small town called Aberville. It sat on the side of a wide valley, overlooking a lake known as Silent Water. All the way round the valley, there were woods stretching up into the mountains. On the furthest side of the valley, across the lake, was Wild Bear Woods. Nobody ever went there. There were real wild bears living in the woods, and everyone in Aberville was terrified of them. They didn't even want to talk about them. Just the word bear was enough to send shivers down a townsperson's back. Long ago, they had built high walls around the town to protect themselves, and the gates were shut and locked each evening. Even Polly, who loved animals, was very frightened of the bears in Wild Bear Woods. She often thought she could hear them. It was the only downside to her brilliant gift. At night, when everyone else was asleep and everything was quiet, Polly lay awake listening to the distant rumblings and roars. Sometimes she had nightmares of being chased through dark, tangled woods. She'd be running and running, feeling the bears close behind her, their long yellow claws catching on her clothes. And her legs would suddenly crumple, and she'd stumble and fall. Then she'd wake up, in her own safe, warm bed, with her heart pounding in her chest. She knew there were terrible stories about the bears, about their ruthlessness and ferocity, and the dreadful things that happened to the people who met them, but no one would tell her anything specific. Polly thought that sometimes not knowing something was far worse than knowing the truth, however terrible. So one day, after a particularly bad nightmare, she asked Uncle Stan about the bears. "I need you to tell me everything you know," she said. "You have to tell me." Crow hopped from foot to foot on her shoulder, as agitated as she was. Stan looked at Polly uncertainly. "Well, I suppose you're old enough now." He took off his hat and held it to his chest. "There are lots of stories about the bears, but I suppose the worst, the scariest, is about the family who stopped in Wild Bear Woods for a picnic." He stopped talking and gripped his hat even more tightly. "Go on," said Polly. "Apparently, it gets very dark in there very quickly," Stan continued. "The edges of the wood don't look so bad, but inside, the trees grow so densely, and the branches are thick and all woven together, so that the sun can't get in and you can't see much. It's dark as night all day long, they say. And this family must have got lost, and they wouldn't have seen the hole. And they fell. They fell into a pit. Deep, really deep, like a well." Stan continued in a whisper. "But it wasn't a well. It was a trap. It was the bear's trap." He gulped. "To catch